Welcome to the tutorial on registering a source control project. Are you planning on modernizing your source code projects or planning on automating continuous integration for your cloud-native workloads? If so, this tutorial is the right place to start. Before we start onboarding the projects, it's important to learn about code authenticators, what are they, why we need them, and how to configure these authenticators. Once we have the code authenticators in place, registering a source code project is a one-step process. Source code projects are registered using OAuth-based single sign-on. To authenticate a single sign-on request, an OAuth application needs to be added in the source code platforms like GitHub, GitLab and Bitbucket. These OAuth applications are added in gopaddle as code authenticators. When a source code project is registered from gopaddle makes a single sign-on request to the code authenticators to authenticate the registration. When you are using gopaddle SaaS Edition, you can choose to use the default code authenticators provided by the platform. But you can create your own custom authenticators as well. This table gives an overview of when to use custom code authenticators. We have 4 different combinations based on the kind of gopaddle subscription and the kind of source code platforms. You may be using a SaaS or an on-premise edition of gopaddle. Similarly, you may want to use a managed source code system like github.com, gitlab.com or bitbucket.com, or use a self-hosted version of the source code system. In case of a gopaddle SaaS edition, you can use the platform-provided default authenticators. Default authenticators are maintained by the gopaddle team. You can choose to create your own custom authenticator as well. In case of gopaddle on-premise edition, there are no default authenticators. You need a custom authenticator to register the source code projects. Coming to the source code system edition, if you are using a self-hosted version, like a self-hosted github.com or a self-hosted gitlab.com, you cannot use the default authenticators. You will need your own custom authenticator registered in the self-hosted source code system. If you are using gopaddle Community Edition, you cannot use code authenticators to authenticate your source control account registration. In such cases, you must use personal tokens to register your source control account. Review these options carefully before we proceed with the next steps. Let's move on to the process of creating code authenticators for gopaddle on-premise and SaaS editions. Let me start with github.com. In your GitHub account, under User Profile, select the Settings option. Under the Developer Settings, choose OAuth Applications. Register a new application. Name the OAuth application and provide the gopaddle homepage URL. If you are using the gopaddle SaaS edition, then the homepage URL will be portal.gopaddle.io. If you are using the gopaddle on-premise edition, then the homepage URL will be the endpoint of the on-premise gopaddle installation. Next, add the callback URL. This is the URL to which the OAuth application will return as soon as the single sign-on request is completed. It is the gopaddle home URL followed by /codes. OAuth application is now ready. To register the OAuth application in gopaddle, we need the client ID and the client secret. In the gopaddle console, navigate to the code section. Under Code Authenticators, add a new code authenticator. If you are using a managed source code system, set the provider type as SaaS. If you are using a self-hosted source code system, then choose on-premise. Provide the client ID and the client secret of the OAuth application. Provider URL is the URL of the source code system to which the single sign-on request will be sent. If you are using a self-hosted source code system, then the provider URL must point to the on-premise source code system. The redirect URL must match the redirect URL provided while creating the OAuth application. Click on Create to create a new custom code authenticator. The custom code authenticator can now be used to authenticate our source code project registration. Let's now look at creating a code authenticator for GitLab. In your GitLab console, navigate to your profile settings by clicking on Edit Profile. Choose Applications to add an OAuth application. Provide the redirect URL. If you are using gopaddle SaaS Edition, then the redirect URL will be portal.gopaddle.io/codes. If you are using an on-premise gopaddle edition, then the redirect URL will be your gopaddle endpoint followed by /codes. To decide on the scopes of access for your OAuth application, search for GitLab in the gopaddle help documents. Under the source code management authenticators, you will find the list of scopes required for the GitLab OAuth application. Enable the required scopes in the GitLab OAuth application and save the application. Copy the application ID and the secret. In the gopaddle dashboard, create a new code authenticator. Choose the provider type as GitLab. Provide the copied application ID as the client ID and the secret as the client secret. Click on Create to create a new code authenticator. Now the GitLab code authenticator is ready for use. Let's register a Bitbucket code authenticator. In the Bitbucket console, navigate to the user profile page and select Settings. Under the OAuth consumers, add a consumer. The callback URL is the URL to which the requests are redirected as soon as an OAuth single sign-on process is complete. If you are using a gopaddle SaaS edition, then the callback URL will be portal.gopaddle.io/codes. If you are using the on-premise edition of gopaddle, then the callback URL will be your gopaddle endpoint, followed by /codes. The URL is your gopaddle endpoint. When it comes to the permissions required for the OAuth application, you can review the permissions in the gopaddle help document. Add the required permissions for your OAuth application and save the application. Copy the key and the secret. In the gopaddle dashboard, create a new code authenticator. Select the provider as Bitbucket. Provide the copied key as the client key and the secret as the client secret. Click on Create to create a new code authenticator. Now the Bitbucket code authenticator is ready for use. You can now use these code authenticators to register a source control account. If you are using repository which belongs to an organization in GitHub, the single sign-on process will send an authorization request to the organization administrators. Once approved, you can start using the repositories under an organization for building applications in gopaddle. Now, let us take a look at registering source code projects using personal access tokens. In case of gopaddle Community Edition, you must generate a personal access token from your GitHub account. In your GitHub account, under Profile Settings, select Developer Settings and then choose Personal Access Tokens. Enable access to repos and generate a new token. Copy the token. In the gopaddle dashboard, under Source Code Accounts, register source code account and choose Token-Based Authentication. Provide the token copied from your GitHub account and click on Register. This registers your source code account for use within gopaddle. This brings us to the end of this tutorial on registering source control accounts with gopaddle.